Good morning. Welcome to College Basketball Heat Check with my man Eli with Heat Check CBB. Eli, what up, my man?
How's it going?
Good, man. Good. Excited to talk about hot topics in college basketball for the first couple weeks. And we have two special guests. We have Xavier, assistant coach Ben Johnson coming on, and we also have Jason Ludwig from Santa Clara. Xavier is 6-0, Santa Clara is 4-0. So two of the hottest teams in the country will have their assistant coaches coming on too. And I'll let Eli kind of kick us off, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to have them on. Two coaches that are now combined 10-0 on the season, so definitely seeing some teams emerge from the rough here in the early going. But big weekend again. It wasn't as big as we were anticipating with Gonzaga Baylor being postponed. That was a big disappointment. I know we were looking forward to that one. A lot of other people were looking forward to that one. That was called off, I think, just about an hour before tip-off in Indianapolis, so kind of caught everyone by surprise there.
Yep.
I believe reported 2 positives within Gonzaga's team, and they're currently on pause. So it's just kind of the nature of what college basketball is going to be like this season. We spoke about it on this show. Some teams are going to be able to squeeze some games in here and there. Other teams are going to go on pause. So that was too bad, but I think that Mark Few and Scott Drew still have this mutual agreement to try to get that game played at some point. Both of those teams scheduled that game kind of out of necessity with the Pac-12 canceling their seasons until January. I believe it was way back in August. So that's too bad, but it's kind of the state of college basketball. We still have roughly around 40 or so teams that have yet to play a game. And I just caught a few minutes ago that Siena, which is one of the mid-majors I have my eye on, is going on pause again, and they are still looking to play their very first game. So that's kind of the nature of it. Of course, we've spoken about the Ivy League as well, not playing the season, a couple other mid-majors. So still waiting on about 40 or so teams to play their first game of the 2020-2021 season.
Yeah, we had Ivy League Penn assistant coach Trey Montgomery on yesterday talking about just the shutdown and some of the disappointment, but also just being able to refocus and on academics and figure out how to keep getting better. And definitely tough when you know your season's not going to be played. And there's still some teams that just haven't played. We talked about San Jose State. We'll actually have Santa Clara assistant coach on who will talk about how they've had to move from their county in order to keep playing games. We know New Mexico State. We've had James Miller on All Access Sports Media show with JUCO Hoops Insider, and he talked about how they're living in Arizona right now. So a lot of, almost, I don't want to say displacement, but a lot of just having to figure out how to work through this COVID time. I just got a text this morning from an assistant talking about how they play Baylor. Stephen F. Austin plays Baylor tomorrow, and he has a one-day prep that they have to figure out how to face a number 2 team in the country. So I think Baylor also plays Charleston State on the 15th of the month. Is a new scheduled game. So there's going to be a lot of changes. There's going to be a lot of schedule last-minute things. Definitely coaches trying to do their best to keep their players safe, but also figure out how to play games and get to 13. So definitely have to be opportunistic and open, and shout out to all the director of operations who are having to scramble and figure out how to make sense of this whole time. So anything else that kind of stood out as far as just the COVID-19 stuff?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head there. I think that obviously it's an unfortunate time with this virus going on, but at the same time, it allows these coaches and these staffs to really shine, who are the most versatile and are able to make last-second decisions. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I know Jay Wright and Villanova, they extended their stay at the Mohegan Sun over in Connecticut, and it led to a loss against Virginia Tech. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But these teams that are able to squeeze in games at the last moment, I think it's good for the sport, and it's for us. We're sitting back and watching. It's pretty interesting to see these games pop out of nowhere, and some of them might be really good games between top 25 teams, or at least a mid-major facing off against a really good program like Baylor. So I think that flexibility is going to be a huge benefit for the coaching staffs who are able to make those moves. And We discussed it last week, especially with J.D. Pollock from San Diego State. He's talking about how their schedule had to come in formation. So a lot of movement, and that's going to be the case. A lot of teams haven't played. Some teams have played up to 5-6 games. It's going to be a weird season, but everyone's trying to push for that 13-game minimum.
Yeah, and we talk about the hot topics here, of course, and we have two guests coming on here soon. We have Coach Ben Johnson from Xavier coming on in a little bit. We look forward to talking to them. They're 5-0. On Coast to Coast, we selected them as one of our teams of the week for the first couple weeks of the season. So talk about some of the national topics. Obviously, Kentucky's a big topic right now. What's going on there? There's obviously a little bit of a trend with teams that have returners, teams that have older players, have been able to adjust a little bit better and have an earlier success just because of familiarity, because of being there, having done that. So we'll talk a little bit about that too, but talk a little bit about some of the national topics, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think the first one people are talking about is Kentucky and the Wildcats, of course, heading into the season with so much talent and have the benefit of receiving those transfer waivers from Olivier Sarr and Jacob Toppin and Davion Mintz coming into the fold as well. But they've looked pretty shaky out of the gates. They've really struggled to score the basketball, and turnovers have just mounted up like crazy, dropping home games now to Richmond, losing the Kansas game in the Champions Classic, and then also that game against Georgia Tech over the weekend. So they're 1-3 for the first time in 20 years, and I don't think it's necessarily the end of the world for this team. They have, of course, on paper as much talent as anyone, but I think it kind of speaks to the larger picture here, and something that we've spoken about in the past as well, in that teams that have brought back their core nucleus, who are mostly led by juniors and seniors, I think just have a pretty substantial benefit here because with the weird off season, a lot of teams are only able to practice a few times, if at all. And I think that familiarity can be a really big deal. And I'm curious to get kind of your standpoint on this from a coaching perspective. But we've seen some of the teams that are younger have their struggles. Kentucky isn't necessarily young, but it's a lot of new guys that are joining in. And then on the flip side, you have maybe a team like Missouri that didn't enter the year with a ton of expectations, but they're one of the oldest teams in college basketball. It brought everyone back, and they're off to a really good start. Same can be said with Texas and Shaka Smart there. They've been off to a good start as well. So it's kind of that trend that we've seen so far, and I imagine it smooths out as the season goes along, but it's kind of curious to see that because it is something that's been a topic. So I'm kind of curious to get your standpoint on that, just being a coach, and whether you see that as a big advantage, at least at the start of the season, whether you have a lot of juniors and seniors, or if you're bringing in a lot of new recruits, if that's a bigger challenge.
Yeah, I think the word that comes to mind is just familiarity and that comfort. I think usually there's a transition from there's always a transition from whatever level when you move up, whether it's high school guys going to college, junior college guys going to Division I, whether it's NBA guys that are former college guys. There's always a transition. So just having that comfort level and familiarity is such a big deal. And then not only just playing the game at that level and understanding it, but just understanding all the prep stuff, the scouting reports, the travel, the how to take care of your body, how to mesh with your teammates. When you have players back, you mentioned Texas, you mentioned Missouri, even a team like Baylor who's gotten out of the gates and played phenomenally well from the beginning. They have so many players back from last year, and then the guys they've added in, for the most part, are older guys. And then when you do have some freshmen that come in, somebody that comes to mind is like a Tremont Mark from Houston that's played really well out of the gate. I think he was freshman of the week, in the American out of the gate. And so a kid like that, a young player like that, is able to fit in when you're with a bunch of veterans. It takes the pressure off of you too. Whereas at Kentucky, they're really looking around to the left and to the right and figuring out, well, nobody really knows what we're doing. And so as there's not as much leadership from having a standpoint of been there, done that. And I think it means so much to any college program when you have experience and then you have some continuity with guys coming back. There's familiarity. You understand the staff. You understand the system. So I think usually there's those older teams are going to benefit in the beginning of the year, but even more so now, being the fact that you haven't had as much prep. The off season's been so different, right? You don't have the normal summer, And then not only that, but just from a scrimmage standpoint, you normally get a couple scrimmages, exhibition games where you get to play against somebody else, a couple test runs. So not having had those definitely experienced teams, it makes sense why they're kind of getting out to the gate and having so much success early on.
Yeah, and with a team like Kentucky, they're not, I guess, immune to some of those challenges early in the season. It's happened the last handful of years. They drop a game or two, and a lot of these teams are playing tough games out of the gates because oftentimes we see first 2-3 weeks of the season, a team like Kentucky might only schedule mid majors or low majors at home the first 5 games, and I think that in itself kind of gains some familiarity, and guys are able to get those in-game reps a little bit better before they go and head to, say, Maui or go play in Chicago or something like that. So a lot of those teams haven't had that luxury. If you're playing Maui the second game of the season, I think that's kind of a bigger deal. It's kind of tough to get your feet under yourself, and then I mean, in a couple of days, some teams have already played conference games, so we're just off and away. It's a strange year, and like I said, and like I will say many times, it's just the coaches who are able to adapt to the environment and what's going on are the ones who are going to be the most successful. And I think you have to point to those groups who have been there the longest, who will probably have the advantage. So I think these teams will wind up figuring it out, but it is kind of an interesting trend that I noticed over the weekend.
Yeah, and I think so much of you kind of touched on it. Duke struggled a little bit out of the gate, right, as well. Kansas has a lot of new faces. And those guys are not afraid to kind of play some of those big games early in the year. You usually see Michigan State, Duke play to start the year, and Kansas, Kentucky to start the year. And then this week, we'll talk about some of the scheduling that's coming up. You see the Big Ten ACC Challenge. So that's obviously high-level games being played. So you're getting tested early. It's a good thing because you can find out where your team is, and you can really start making the corrections. You want to be tested. Every coach that's a Division I head coach, and really at every level, you're always trying to figure out ways to push your team, to teach them, to get that aha moment to happen. So it's all about playing your best basketball at the right time. You want to win now as much as you can, but at the same time, you wouldn't trade winning now for then not being able to win later. So I think that's the biggest thing for teams, is just figuring out, how do we keep building? How do we keep getting better? How do we keep adjusting to these times? And how do we just figure out how to get to 13 games so we can play in our conference tournament, be playing the right ball? And then for some of the bigger schools, you obviously want to get the at-large wins you can, the bigger games outside of conference when it comes to talking about the bubble picture. But, let's talk a little bit about, before we have our guests come on, let's talk a little bit about some of the scheduling things you see upcoming that you like.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really big week, and yesterday was quiet. I think we kind of expected that on some of these early Mondays in the season, but I mean, tonight with the Big Ten ACC Challenge rolling in, we have North Carolina and Iowa. I'm really curious how this game unfolds. Iowa's a team that I've been a bit skeptical of, just because on the defensive side, I think they're a little bit lax, but that's a huge opportunity for them to steal one of these big victories, and they've looked the part so far. Creighton, Kansas is another one that's coming up not too long from now. That should be a really good offensive-based matchup, and some good mid-major teams in action this week too. Austin Peay's kind of struggled. They're taking on Murray State tonight. I think that's a mid-major teams. Some other ones down the list. Furman, which is a team that I'm sure we'll touch on at some point. They are currently off to, I believe, a 4-0 start. They're taking on Cincinnati, which is a good opportunity for them. Michigan State, Virginia, another Big Ten ACC Challenge game. And then another one I'm curious about is San Diego State and Arizona State. And that's a matchup of really good backcourts. The Aztecs had some trouble with Pepperdine over the weekend. Pepperdine's been playing well, though. But I'm curious how the Aztecs are able to take this thing on the road against ASU, which is, again, a really good offensive-based teams. But they've had a little bit of hiccups so far. Overall, though, a lot of really good ones. And I know you being the Texas guy, you'll have your eyes on Texas at Baylor on Sunday. That's kind of that's a really good matchup. And curious to see just how this Texas team unfolds, because I know if you had to choose 5 topics over the offseason, the first one would be, how is Shaka Smart going to make this work? And so far, he's done a really good job. They dropped that Villanova game, but it was competitive throughout. And I think a lot of people gained confidence in the Longhorns and saw that this is a team that's legitimate, top 10, top 15 good. But hey, they're going to get their shot against Baylor this weekend, so that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love what Texas has done to this point. You wish for their sake they beat Villanova, but they're really kind of playing with house money at that point in time because they had won the Maui Invitational. You're not going to win all of these big games, but they still showed well. I think the Baylor-Texas matchup, out of the ones you said, is as intriguing as any. I think that's part of why Baylor probably is fitting in a couple games beforehand so they can have some tests and not just be showing up to that one particular game. But, again, two older teams, two teams that have some familiarity with each other. Definitely going to be a great test early on as well, along with the Big Ten ACC matchup, the challenge. There's always great games, always games that you may not think this team's going to win or you like this particular matchup, and it always kind of surprises you. So, you love the early part of the season just to kind of see how teams stack up and who looks good when, and you love these early tests as well. So you mentioned Furman. They are 4-0. There's a few teams kind of mid-major wise that have really kind of gotten out of the gate. We had Mercer assistant coach Bobby Coomer on yesterday on Coast to Coast. They've gotten off to an undefeated start. Furman also has, Abilene Christian has, Winthrop has. Those teams have really kind of stood out. We talk about San Diego State quite a bit. They've also played well out of the gate. We'll have Santa Clara on, assistant coach. We'll have Xavier, assistant coach, on. Those teams are really gotten hot out of the gate. Talk a little bit about some of the conferences that you feel like have really showed well to this point.
Yeah, well, I think starting with Winthrop, I think that's a team that I absolutely have my eyes on, and they've unfortunately had a few of those games postponed to start the season. They were expected to open things off against Seton Hall, which in hindsight would have been a really, really fun game. But Winthrop's still 2-0. They defeated some really good mid-majors in, I believe, Little Rock and UNCG. Those are two really good wins to start the season. But some of these conferences I've been impressed by over on the West Coast, the WCC. Everyone's going to talk about Gonzaga, and rightfully so, but we've seen San Francisco defeat Virginia. We've seen St. Mary's play some really good basketball. BYU doesn't look like they're going to take that much of a step back as I was anticipating. But even further down the list, Santa Clara off to an undefeated start, and Loyola Marymount has won a couple of games. So overall, I think I had some questions about the conference heading into the season. I thought, it probably still is Gonzaga's to lose just because of how good the Bulldogs are, but there is more depth to the league than I was anticipating. And I expect some of these offenses to really step up and make things tough on some of their opponents as the year goes along. But another one that you had touched on a little bit, the SoCon, that's a league that has been kind of rising in respect over the last few years. And a lot of it's due to East Tennessee State with Steve Forbes, and he's no longer there. But you still have some of these programs like Furman, UNCG, Wofford, which dropped a close one to Richmond yesterday, and then also Mercer. So a lot of really good contestants out of that bunch. And I think, the mid-majors didn't really get a ton of respect in the preseason top 25. And I think I understand that to a large degree, just with what Gonzaga has done compared to the rest of the field. But you look at the WCC, which could very well get to multiple bids. The A10, the top of that league, is just phenomenal with Rhode Island, Richmond, Dayton, Davidson, a lot of those programs there. And then the SoCon looks really competitive. So plenty of good mid-major teams to watch, and that's not even counting some of the other ones that will bubble up. Abilene Christian, we're going to mention some of those other teams. And ASUN usually has some quality basketball being played there, like Liberty. So I think it's a really fun year to pay attention to these mid-majors, particularly because with the season shrunk from the usual 30, 31 games now to just 12, 14, 16. A lot of these teams can wind up with really good win-loss records and maybe enter Selection Sunday as, say, a one-loss team or a two-loss team. So I'm curious to see how that kind of all plays out.
Yeah, for sure. And we're excited to have our first guest on, Ben Johnson from Xavier. We're going to break for a quick commercial, and then we'll come back with Coach Johnson.
Thank you for joining us for the All Access Coaches Corner podcast. We are so excited to continue serving coaches, sharing their stories, and spotlighting their programs. Stay connected as we bring you more special guests and more real conversations covering all aspects of the game. You can find our show on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you like to get your podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at allaccess_CC. Subscribe to the All Access Network YouTube channel and join us in the All Access Coaches Corner.
I want to take time to acknowledge one of our partners, Rising Coaches. Every coach wants to rise in their career in one way or another. We're all looking for professional development, access to tools, and relationships that can help us grow and help us advance in our career. Rising Coaches provides just that. You can visit Rising Coaches at www.risingcoaches.com. Their memberships are just $10 a month and provides a genuine community to help you grow and advance in your career. Coach, what up, man? How you doing?
What's going on?
We all working to be undefeated like you, my man. Great start to the year. Thanks so much for joining us, man, taking the time. Let's just go straight into it. What have you thought about the season so far? You guys have obviously played really well. So just talk a little bit about how you guys have got off to such a great start.
Yeah, no, so far so good for sure. I think our guys have done a great job of, first thing being able to be COVID free. I think you see across the country, teams having to be put on pause, and that obviously takes you back a little bit when you can't practice and you miss games. So our guys have done a really good job of, handling business off the court and being able to allow us to continue to practice and play. And then, they've grown. We had a couple guys that had new spots in our first 4 games and kind of new roles, and we're able to be close to full strength right now. Got everybody close to back for the Cincinnati game last weekend. And so now it's just continuing to do our system and get comfortable with things and push forward.
How was the team just overall adjusted to playing in such a strange time? I've talked to a lot of coaches on this show, just how their players and just the staff has adjusted. How's that been like for you?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. Our guys honestly have been pretty good. I think we all have learned the hardest thing, or well, not the hardest, but one of the things that I guess is more difficult is winning and playing at home. I think, we've had a couple of close games, and there really is no pressure when you're on the road. We experienced that last weekend. Like normally, if you're on the road and the home team goes on a run or strings a couple together, you get the crowd involved, you get the fans involved. It can become a different type of environment. You feel it. Whereas now, team goes on a run, or if you let a team, if you have a lead and you let a team back in it, there's really not that extra boost of just juice in the building that can kind of all of a sudden now it's like, dang, that lead went from 2 to 10 really quick. And so that's been, I guess, the part for our guys is talking about you got to kind of create your own energy. You can't rely on, the crowd to help you, the crowd to get you through runs or get you into a run. You've got to kind of really create your own juice and energy. And then, conversely, when you go on the road, if you're mentally tough and you just continue to do what you do and do what we do, you'll hopefully be able to be in games.
Yeah. And one of the things I was going to ask you that you already kind of hinted on a little bit was the Xavier-Cincinnati rivalry. Everyone knows about it and just how huge of a deal that is, especially in the Ohio area. In a situation like that, when you're so used to either playing in front of your home crowd that will extra amp game, or playing on the road where you have to really have your guys settle in, what is that like playing in an empty arena where you have to create your own energy in a way?
Yeah. No, it's definitely different. I guess the one benefit about the UC rivalry is our guys respect it. And so they know regardless, there could be one person, there could be 12,000, we're going to have the same intensity. We're going to have the same respect for the opponent and the same will to win. And they showed that. So that was a positive. But, from here going forward, it is something that we definitely talk about because I think you can steal some on the road. And at the same time, you got to know when you're at home, that the advantage that we rely on with our unbelievable crowd and atmosphere, it's not going to be there. And so we've got to create that ourselves, and we got to stay locked in ourselves and not rely on a fallback. You can't rely on the crowd. You can't rely on home court advantage. And it just means you got to be a little bit tighter and a little bit crisper and a little bit more mature.
And just with your team getting off to this hot start and I believe leading the nation right now in wins, you guys have stacked a lot of games early. Just if you're able to speak a little bit on how this schedule came into place. I know every team has been scrambling for games, whether it's just the day of or weeks leading up. What has that schedule process been like for your staff?
Yeah, our staff did a great job. Obviously, Coach Steele and his vision, and Mario, who handles a lot of our scheduling, did an unbelievable job. We were actually scheduled to play in Orlando in the tournament there, and when we kind of got wind that it could be a no-go, or if it was a go, it could have some issues, we ended up getting out of that right away. And then what that allowed us to do was kind of create our own MTE at home, and we're able to invite Oakland, Bradley, and Toledo, and do our own event here, which really helped. And I think those tournaments are big because we got 3 games in 3 days, and so you shrink the chances with breaks of somebody getting something, whether that's your team or another team, and so you're able to get those 3 games in. So that was huge. I mean, that's obviously half our games so far, but then also being able to have a 1-day prep to a game, or at max 2-day prep and then a game. You're able to slide all these games in. And so I think that's what everybody is really trying to do, and that's the hardest thing. And then when you get thrown the wrinkle of a team testing positive and not being able to compete, it's that scramble of, okay, how do you get a team on short notice to travel, to do the proper protocol, and to get cleared, and to have an open date and time and all that. So it can be a headache. Knock on wood, we haven't been able or haven't had to experience it yet, but you never know down the line.
Yeah. What would you say, just with all the things that you mentioned there, what would you say is probably the biggest adjustment that you as a staff have had to make just to compete in a season like this where things are just so unique and strange?
Yeah, I think a big adjustment is you got to have guys that probably know offensively multiple positions, because you don't know, if a guy gets put on pause, or, whether that's contact tracing, or if a student athlete ends up getting it, the length of time they could be out. It does mess with your rotations. It can mess with, game plan, offense, defense. So just constantly making sure, you're versatile. So if you lose a guy here, or you lose a couple guys there, you're still able to compete and not have to totally revamp what you're doing offensively and obviously defensively. So just constantly reviewing, keeping things simple, but then also knowing, you can have to pivot at any moment. And so it's just being prepared and try to, think forward and maybe anticipate problems or situations, so that if it does happen, you've got a really good game plan for it.
Yeah, and with your team, I mean, a lot of guys who can play multiple positions. One of the players who I've had my eye on for a little while now is Zach Fremantle, and he's been off to a really good start for you guys. Maybe just talk a little bit about him and his development over this offseason or after year one, and kind of what you anticipate for him as the season progresses.
Yeah, well, Zach's been great. Zach had a really good freshman year, and our hopes were, and I know his were to come back and have a really good sophomore year. And I think he's been off to a good start. Nobody puts in more time working on his game than Zach does. He's expanded. He can now score inside. He can hit the mid range, kind of that in between two, and he can step out and be a pick and pop big. So that's been huge for us, especially offensively, when you got a guy that can score at all 3 levels, especially stretch it from 3. But he's a worker. And like I said, all credit goes to him. The guy puts in the time and the reps and consistently, and he truly loves to play. So hates when he comes out in practice and misses a rep, wants to compete every day. And so we're fortunate to have him. And like I said, I think he's off to a great start and a really bright future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, with Paul being there too, he's really showed up early and often the last few years for you guys. What would you say overall is kind of the team's identity? I know a lot of coaches like to talk about that subject, whether it's on the defensive end or scoring the basketball. What would you say is Xavier's identity this year and what you guys do best?
Yeah, I think right now, a Xavier staple has always been defense. We're gonna start on that end of the floor, and that just comes with having grit, having toughness. This year, I think we have added the component of being able to shoot the ball from multiple spots. So, hopefully we'll be able to show that as the year goes on. But having the versatility and the skill to shoot at all 5 spots, I think for us will be big. And then our depth. This is the deepest team that we've had since we've been here in our 3 years. So being able to use that depth, that scoring off the bench, and not having drop-offs at any spot, I think will be big. And hopefully as the year progresses, be able to wear teams down and to get into their bench and be able to continue to score points.
And to that point, is there something in particular that you hope to see that maybe you haven't out of the team in the early going that you hope to see as the season progresses a little bit?
I think as a coach, you just want to continue to see, continuity and growth and being able to really gel. I mean, it's still early in the season and we still have new guys, whether that's grad transfers or freshmen that haven't had a ton of game or minutes under their belt. So I think it's continuing just to take baby steps every day to grow and to gel and to get comfortable in our system and to get comfortable with how we want to play as a program. And then obviously the chemistry piece, continue to grow with our chemistry piece. It doesn't matter who starts games, who plays in games, who gets X amount of minutes, X amount of shots. When you got a team that's got pretty good depth, chemistry piece is definitely huge and guys pulling for each other and wanting what's good for the overall program.
And one of the other points before I'll have Brian hop on here, you did mention transfers on that, and that's such a huge thing that we've discussed on this show with a lot of these programs bringing in transfers. This universal transfer waiver, which has been the topic for quite some time with a lot of these guys who are waiting to hear back on waivers. I know you have 2 players waiting in the wings right now. Is there anything in particular that stands out to you about just the transfer waiver entry in college basketball and whether that's going to be a big thing moving forward for this program?
Yeah, no, thankfully we actually got surprisingly one of our transfers eligible that played on Saturday or played this past weekend. Got him eligible the day before the game. So we're waiting on one right now and just kind of staying with it and hopefully it pushes through. But I definitely think that the transfer market is going to be something that obviously opens up. I think there's talk that it's going to for sure open up in the spring with the one-time transfer policy. So I think you'll see definitely some movement in that area because what it does is allows teams to stay old. It allows teams to get guys that have kind of been proven commodities at whatever level they played at. Every team loses guys. So it's a way to, if you lose a guy, to rebound quickly because it's hard. I mean, if you're continuing losing guys and it's like a revolving door, I love freshmen as much as the next guy, and we built our program off freshmen. But if you're continuing having to replace a junior and a senior for a freshman, it's tough, especially as you go up and you're competing against, the best of the best. If you're even trying to, get to that upper half of any league, it's always helps to stay old and kind of keep that continuity going of older grown bodies.
Talk about a little bit. You talk about transfers and you talk about you guys kind of went unconventional a little bit with one particular guy on your roster that transferred from a lower level. Talk a little bit about that. He's had some early success. A lot of guys may not have even valued it. He didn't necessarily even win where he came from. So what kind of goes into that evaluation process, Coach, if you don't mind speaking on when you're evaluating a transfer? How do you decide if it's a fit? Are his numbers legitimate to translate to this level and to this league? How do you kind of determine that? And then talk a little bit about that particular transfer from the lower level on your team now.
Yeah, definitely. With BG, with Brian that we got from Division II, Coach Steele's he's really active on that portal. So when we see a name pop up, we all kind of dive in and check it out. And Brian was a guy that I think we got a little heads up on once he was in the portal. And, we all just watched some film. And I think what we saw was, he's a big, that's long. He's got true size at 6'8". He's got a good build to him. So he's physically strong. And he just runs and moves really easy. So, when we watched the film and broke it down, we thought it's hard to miss on a guy that moves like that, that's built like that, that's an athlete like that. And he's got a pretty good touch. You notice that on film. He can shoot up to about 15, 17 feet. And so, credit goes to Brian. He got here and he has been a sponge. I mean, he is tried to learn and grow every day. Hard worker. And what we feel like is we get the right type of guys with a mentality like that, a guy that's willing to buy his time. This is a D2 guy that averaged low 20s. And so he could have gone to a bunch of places and probably had, especially early, maybe a little bit bigger role, but this is a guy that wanted to be here. And we're a staff that believes if you got guys that want to be in that locker room, that's half the battle. And, BG is just, like I said, continued to believe in himself, to trust the cliche, to trust the process. And it's paid off. Every day in practice, he's gotten better, and then it's transferred into games. And, he had a huge game at UC in 11 minutes, had 6 points, 5 rebounds, and a big-time block. So we expect big things from BG from here on out. And, I expect he's going to have a really successful season and really help us.
Yeah, for sure. Talk a little bit about the Big East, Coach. So you played Big Ten yourself. For those that don't know, I've known Ben for a long time. He played college ball with my brother at Northwestern, then transferred to Minnesota, had a lot of success there. You went back as a coach at Minnesota. You've actually kind of climbed the ranks at all levels. You were in Texas at UT and before it was UTRGV. You paid your dues, which a lot of high-level players don't always necessarily do. So you've paid your dues. You've seen a lot of different leagues. You've recruited a lot of different players. What makes the Big East so unique, and how do you think for yourself, two-part question, you've been able to kind of navigate this college basketball profession and having so many successful seasons? I didn't even mention Northern Iowa. You were part of coaching and making an NCAA tournament run there. Ali Farouk-Manesh is a friend of the show.
Yeah.
He's been on before. Of course, he made the shot. You were one of the coaches on the staff. So you've had a tremendous amount of success in your career. You're 6-0 there as an assistant on the brink of becoming a head coach. So talk a little bit about your own journey, and then also just kind of fit in the Big East and what makes that league so good.
Yeah, I'll probably tackle that second part first. I've been lucky. I'll be honest. I've been fortunate. I try to tell guys all the time. It's and as you guys know, it's hard. It's hard to get in, and then it can be hard to grow and to move up. And so you gotta be lucky. You gotta catch a couple breaks. You gotta have somebody's got to believe in you and kind of throw you a bone. That happened to me. Obviously, I had a little bit of an advantage because I played. There was familiarity with different guys that either recruited me or played against me during my career. So I kind of had a little bit of a foot in the door. But, my first job at what was UTPA, I got with Tom Schubert, who I didn't know and he didn't know me. And we met at a Final Four for probably like 2 hours. And I think because the job didn't pay anything and I was willing to move on a dime and do whatever I had to do, I got the job. But was like I said, was fortunate. I mean, there was a guy that I had no recruiting experience. I was coming off as a GA at Dayton. Had never officially coached a day in my life, but he believed in me, trusted me, gave me a shot, gave me an opportunity, and it's kind of been every step along the way. And I just tell guys, you just gotta try to push as much as you can, network as much as you can. I wish there was a cookie cutter way to do it, but I think everybody's journey is different. And like I said, I've just been fortunate and blessed that, mine has worked out, and I've been able to work with some unbelievable coaches at some unbelievable schools. And this one, being in the Big East is definitely different. I grew up as a Big Ten guy, obviously, grew up in Minneapolis, so I watched it, played in it, coached in it at 2 different schools. The Big East to me is just more open. It's more up and down. It's a guards league. It's a little bit smaller in terms of, your traditional bigs. The fours here, quote unquote, are really, a lot of them are perimeter fours, stretch fours, kind of those hybrid fours that can dribble, pass, and shoot and are really guards. So it really kind of opens the floor. You got a lot of teams that are, high power offense, like, Villanova can make a bunch of threes, plays fast, scores it. Creighton plays fast, scores it. You go on down the line. We try to play fast, score it, play a little bit smaller lineup, which is fun. It's fun to coach. It's fun to recruit. It's fun to play in. And then I think the tradition of the league, with us adding UConn, it's like, you got brands in the Big East. And obviously you got the East Coast market. You got Madison Square Garden, where we have the Big East tournament, where there's been historic Big East tournament games. But I just think the brand is hot right now. And it's actually, for me, been really cool to see the difference of this style of basketball. And I really enjoy it and love it and glad I'm here.
Yeah, just when you look around the league, you touched on some of the teams, but what kind of do you have your eye on? Obviously, Villanova, Creighton, and now UConn joining in the fold. What are some of the key things that you have your eyes on, and just what's your overall takeaway of the league this season?
Yeah, no, I think our league's going to be good as always. I think, like I said, with the addition of UConn, you love to have them in, but you hate to have to play them. We were able to play them in a tournament last year and beat them, but we knew then, we said, okay, we got a taste for it now, and we knew what to expect. And they've done a great job recruiting. They've got an unbelievable brand. And so I think as a competitor, that's what you want, though. I mean, you want to be able to play against the best. Seton Hall has been on an unbelievable run the last couple of years. Last year had a big time team. Creighton's got it rolling right now. They've got a really good program, a really good style, heck of a coach. So I think as a competitor, it's what you want. If you're a high level kid that's ready to play college basketball, it's what you want. You want to play on the big stage and big lights. You just saw Marquette beat Wisconsin, number 4th ranked Wisconsin, the other night at home. And so I think, we definitely have proven it with Villanova doing it twice that, you can win a national championship coming out of the Big East. Xavier's proven it with being one of the number 1 overall seeds in the NCAA tournament that you can be an unbelievable seed coming out of this league. We'll obviously have multiple teams. And so it's a high level competitive top to bottom. I mean, there's no cupcakes. It's a basketball league, and with no football, it's 24/7. I mean, people live for it, and that's what makes it so special.
Does your perspective, I guess, as a staff kind of change at all when you go from maybe playing some mid-majors at home to then entering into league play when not this year with environments, but playing against some of those brand name teams? Does that perspective change at all, or does your coaching staff kind of adjust to just a single game, or is it kind of like first part of the season non-conference and then second part of the season conference? Is there anything that's unique there?
Yeah, I think in a normal season, when you have your normal stretch of 11, 12 non-conference games, you can kind of break it up into your non-conference, your conference, and then you got your postseason. You kind of got your three different seasons in one. I think this year it's unique, whereas we're only going to get teams will get, if you're lucky, 6-7 games until you get right into your conference. So for this year, I think it was more of just let's get the games in as many as we can, and let's just look to continue to build and get momentum so that when you go into league play, with a compacted schedule, you're feeling confident with what you're doing, and just knowing that there's steps to get better, and hopefully your progress is headed in the right direction. So it's a little bit different this year, where you necessarily can't break it up as much into like a non-conference. You just got to say, hey, we got games and we're trying to build and get better. And we know when the conference starts, but we got to work more on, work on ourselves to build to get better, so that when we do hit that Big East gauntlet, we're ready to roll.
So lighter subject a little bit. Your head coach is a big fan favorite in the city. After the big win, he did something pretty unique for a head coach that fans love. He's definitely all about the X, and that was obviously playing the rivalry school. You talk a little bit about the story of what he did, if you don't mind, and then also just what makes Coach so great. Obviously, just showing that side of him, being aware of how important the fans are, appreciating them, appreciating the student body is a big deal. Kind of went viral with how he went about that, but it just shows a lot about who he is. So talk a little bit about your head coach and what makes him unique, and obviously a player's coach and aware of the times and kind of what's important to build the energy and the camaraderie around the program.
Yeah, definitely. And it really started last year when we beat them. We have a local spot that's close to campus that does a good job of supporting Xavier athletics, and so they have a watch party for most of our games. I think all of our games actually, and obviously for the UC game, it's probably a little bit bigger than most. And so last year he started the tradition of he went over there after we won and I think put $1,000 on the bar tab to kind of help the people there that have supported us all year, help them celebrate a little bit and be part of our success. And I think he just gets it. I think it definitely helps that he's been an assistant here before he became the head coach. So I think I could be wrong, but I think he's been here. This could be year 14. And so we've seen it, and he's seen how the rivalry has always been, and how the fan bases have always been, and he's been able to feel the people's passion and what it means when Xavier beats UC for the year, and the bragging rights and all of that comes with it. Because we are literally 2 miles away from each other, so you have a lot of families that will combine half Xavier, half UC, and so he gets it, and he understands that the fan base takes it very, very seriously, and there's a lot of tradition that comes with it. And I think it's a way for him to show his appreciation for everything that our fans do for us. And so for this year, you get the big road win. We get in the locker room, and I think Mario reminded him that he said last year if we win it, he'll double it. So it'll be interesting to see if he doubles it next year and gets that thing to 4. I'm sure his wife will have something to say about that, but no, I just think he gets it, and he understands the magnitude, and I think that's why our fan base loves him.
No doubt. Yeah, I think it was 2, so to double it would be 4. If I'm not mistaken. So just end us with a funny story, man. You've been doing this for a long time, or a fun story, something light, something that maybe shed some light to another side of the game, or another inside of either this program or your career, or something that's happened along the way. I know you got some that you kind of saved for off the air. But if you got anything funny for us that just kind of lets people know the other side of college basketball, that would be great as we close with you.
Yeah, man, I would say there's off the top of my head, there's a lot. I got to edit a couple, but I would say especially just speaking on with this staff, this has probably been the funnest staff I've been on from top to bottom, just because I think all the guys. There's no ego, and we all ride each other. And if you can't take it, and if you got thin skin, probably not going to work here. So I would say probably our staff group chats are pretty classic. I think any chance we get to make fun of somebody else on staff, it's game on. And I think that it's always, you're always on. Eyes are always watching. So if you fall down on the hallway, or if you stumble on the practice court, or if you mispronounce a guy's name during a scout, or if you mess up on, it could be whatever. You wear the wrong belt that doesn't look right, or the wrong shoes, you're going to hear about it. And it doesn't just stop. I mean, it comes, I'll tell you this, pictures have been the downfall of this staff. So you think nobody saw, and all of a sudden, a manager or GA got it on film or got it in a picture, and that thing gets in the group chat, you don't ever hear the end of it. So I think you're always on guard. But I think, hopefully that trickles down to our team. I think they sense how united we are as a staff, and hopefully that trickles down into our guys' locker room, and we become that cohesive family that I know we're always striving to be.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks so much, Coach, for coming on. Any last words you have, please share, and then good luck the rest of the way. And you'll be winning more, so we'll have you back at some point later. But,
anytime, man. I appreciate it, and I just really like what you guys are doing to help grow the game, and help just whether it's young coaches getting a different perspective, whether it's guys like me. I always like listening and hearing what other guys and other programs say and do. So I just want to thank you guys for taking the time. Like I said, continue to grow the game, and it's another way for all of us to learn through this Zoom and through video, and it's a great resource. So no, man, I appreciate it. And anytime you want me back, I'm on.
No doubt. Good luck, Coach. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Xavier, assistant coach Ben Johnson. Awesome. Yeah, awesome to be able to get the insight in that. Tell us some of your thoughts, E.
Yeah, it's always cool for me to kind of see how different staffs are adjusting to what's going on right now, and his perspective I think is pretty similar to what we've heard from other coaches in the past. But it's kind of fun to dive in that last bit there, kind of to dive into the camaraderie of the group and just different guys kind of messing around and having a good time within the program. And I think right now, especially, it keeps things light and keeps guys kind of energetic and keep them going. And Xavier's off to a really good start. A lot of guys on that roster who I've had my eye on for quite a while. Zach Fremantle, Paul Scruggs, a lot of talented players on that roster. So they've done a really good job to this point, and it'll be kind of interesting to see how that translates now heading into Big East play, which I believe starts, if not this weekend, I think the next week. So it'll definitely be a team that is worth watching.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of another team that's worth watching, we will come back after a super quick break, and we'll talk to Santa Clara assistant coach and their undefeated start as well. So stay tuned, and we will be right back.
Welcome to All Access Coaches Corner, where our mission is to serve coaches, share their stories, and spotlight their programs with our host, Brian Burton. A longtime successful college basketball coach, former championship collegiate point guard, husband, and father, Brian is now the vice president of Rising Coaches Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Alliance for men's basketball, an empowerment coach and founder of B3 Legacy Sports and the All Access Network. Sports broadcaster and host for All Access Coaches Corner and All Access Sports Media, Coach Burton is now using his successes, experiences, and connections to be a point guard in the sports industry at all levels, with a mission to help others to further their success. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and join us in the All Access Coaches Corner.
Coach, what up, my man? How you doing? Thanks so much for joining us today. I know it's early on the West Coast, but thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thank you guys for having me. We're very appreciative to be here and share the morning with you.
Yeah, really excited to have you on, man. So undefeated start where this show is Heat Check. We talk about the hot topics, and you guys are as hot as anybody starting off to a 4-0 start. I know the other part that's challenging is kind of dealing with the new things going on with the COVID restrictions and kind of things going on in your county. So I'm throwing two at you at once. Talk about the start to the year and also talk about just the adjustments and how you've kind of been able to make it work and figure out how to still keep winning.
Man, that's a lot. That's a lot there. Where do I start? It's been a whirlwind here the last few weeks, but I'll start with our team. And the one thing that I can say is I'm really proud of our guys because, we've already been through a lot in this short season. But our guys have shown great resilience. We had a great offseason. Our guys have really done an incredible job of, from the point they came back, they made it a priority that they wanted this season to be special. And we had a great offseason, and guys really did a good job of not only doing a good job on the court, but really trying to take care of things off the court and being safe. And we've been put in a bubble on campus. We've just, there's no students on campus. They've had to hang out basically with each other this entire time. So it's been a challenging, experience for these guys, but I have to give them all the credit in the world. They've stuck with it. They've stayed together, and we've gotten off to a good start. And I think a big reason for that is we've had a renewed emphasis on toughness and defense going into the season. And I really think that's helped us get off to a great start. I mean, we're holding our opponents to 32% from the field, 26% from three, and our guys are really, really embracing the defensive side of the ball. And it helps that we're a little older. Last year, we had no seniors on the roster. We were, if not the youngest, one of the youngest teams in our conference by far. And this year, 7 of our top 9 guys back, and with only 1 freshman on the roster this year, as opposed to starting 2 last year. So we're a more experienced team, and I think we're a tougher team this year. And I think that's helped us get off to a very good start, even when our offense is not nearly where it will be. Our defense has been consistent, and it's helped us get to get off to the start. But Brian, to the second part of your question, man, we could be on here for the next hour talking about all the things that we've had happen to us here with COVID. And it all started with we opened up the season with our own tournament at Santa Clara, and we were fortunate enough to get 3 games in 4 days. And after we beat Nichols on Saturday, that night and then Sunday morning, we found out that Santa Clara County was shutting down sports. It affected not only us, but Stanford, San Jose State, and even the San Francisco 49ers. So if you know that they're shutting down the NFL, it's a pretty big deal. So we literally, as of last Sunday, a week ago, we didn't have a place to practice and we didn't have a place to play. And with Monday coming and getting ready for games the following week, so that entire Sunday, our athletic director and our unbelievable administration, our coaching staff, we just hit the phones, and we must have made 40 phone calls each trying to figure out where we're going to practice, where we're going to be able to play. And our athletic director was able to pull it off, and she found us the G League Golden State Warriors facility in Santa Cruz, California, which is just outside Santa Clara County, which allows us to practice there and play. But it's just too far to commute. It's about an hour each way. So we've had to take our entire program and move to Santa Cruz. So we on Monday, we practiced there just to get a feel for it, came back, packed up on Monday night. And then on Tuesday morning, we drove back out to Santa Cruz, and we've made that our home base. So we've been playing games there. We were able to play a game on Wednesday against Bakersfield and practice there on a daily basis. And then we had a game Saturday set up against New Mexico State, and then it got canceled because of COVID issues again. So I'll tell you what, our guys have been resilient. They've been through a lot. And then to take it a step further, we couldn't get into the Warriors facility this week. So we came on the road to Cal Poly, and we're here in Pismo Beach right now, and making the commute to San Luis Obispo each day for practice, and we play them on Wednesday. So it's been nuts.
Yeah, sounds like a lot. What would you say, just from your team's perspective, what has been maybe the biggest obstacle, or just how has everyone adjusted to this? Because I mean, you had a laundry list of things that have happened to you in just the last week or so. So just what has that adjustment been like for your team?
Yeah, I think that it's the mental part. It's the mental part that really wears on these guys, because they're young men, and they're used to being on a college campus. They're used to interacting with their friends, having a social life, being able to, as simple as go out to dinner with their friends. And all of that is taken away right now. And we kind of take that stuff for granted, but when it's taken away, especially for young men, I think it wears on them mentally. And I know that's something that we have to keep a close eye on. And we've been trying to be creative and do things together, but there's really not much you can do. So I think that's been the hardest part for us, is for our guys to just really, have to give up all those things that they're used to, and then at the same time still focusing on school, and at the same time go to practice every day and focus in on preparation for games that may or may not happen. So I think that's it's the mental game. It's the mental game. And I think the teams that can stay together, that can stay mentally locked in and overcome these types of adversities, are going to end up having the most success in this crazy season.
As a staff, how do you kind of reinforce maybe things like camaraderie, or just focusing on the team and kind of trying to limit all the distractions that are going on and all of the last second changes? What do you have to do that you honestly haven't had to do in any other type of season?
I think the fact that we've been displaced and we have to take the entire program to a hotel, it allows the coaches to even have more interaction with the players than they normally would otherwise. And I think that helps, because now we get to interact with them consistently. We get to pass them in the hallway. We get to have film sessions with them in the evenings. We can just have more interaction with them. When we're picking up dinner, we can't even have dinner together. We have to pick up our dinner and go take it to the room. But just having those more interactions with our guys, really talking with them more consistently, hearing their thoughts, hearing their feelings and concerns. And I think it helps us, talk about those things more easily and openly. So I think it's kind of a blessing in disguise that we've been all together in Santa Cruz here for a week, and are going to continue that for the next few weeks.
One of the things that Brian and I talked about just at the top of this show is we've kind of noticed a trend with some of the older teams, at least, or more experienced teams, kind of looking a little bit better in the first couple of weeks of the season, and maybe some other rosters that have been led by transfers or some freshmen coming in have had a little bit more struggles. With your team now being more experienced, bringing most of the guys back, do you find that to be an advantage, especially in a season like this, where if you were to bring in, say, 4 or 5 guys, just adjusting to not only playing in a COVID season, but also just playing Division I basketball, that could be a big challenge. So do you kind of approach it that way? Do you see this team as having a bit of an advantage just because they are more experienced?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's definitely the case. When you have a more experienced team, especially not having exhibition games or scrimmages, I mean, that's really tough. I know one of the biggest factors for us after our first game was conditioning. I mean, we just weren't used to playing a 40-minute game. And I think that's where those exhibition games and those scrimmages really help you, is because it simulates what it's like conditioning wise to play a full game, and you're kind of just thrown in the fire and you have to figure it out on the go. And fortunately, we're older, we have some depth, so I think that's helped us tremendously be able to withstand that part of it. And then also just being older in terms of the preparation, we're used to it. We're used to going through scouting reports, we're used to going through walkthroughs. And I think that has helped us as well. We went from a very young team to now a more experienced team, and anytime you have that, I think college basketball, no matter what the circumstances are, it definitely helps you.
And with this roster, I mean, you guys have started really strong out of the gates on the defensive side. Has that been a point of emphasis throughout the offseason? Is it something that your guys just thrive on? Just talk a little bit about the defensive side and what you see out of this year's team.
Yeah, I think last year we were a little disappointed in ourselves. Our defense started off pretty well, and then it kind of slipped up through the end of the season. And we had some injuries that not to make excuses, that really hurt us. But at the end of the day, you still have to play. You still have to defend. And we went into this season with a mindset that no matter what happens, that's going to be our base. That's going to be what we can hang our hat on a daily basis. Defense and toughness. And from the first workouts that we've had as a team, going back to the fall, when we got our guys back, it was a defensive emphasis. It was getting in a stance, covering for each other, and being tough and rebounding. And that's something that we, I think, have started to take personal. And we started in practice, and our guys have really started to embrace it. And it's something that we're really excited about. And we want to make sure that we continue to do it throughout the season, because we know that if we can defend and rebound, you're always going to give yourself a chance to win. And there's no question that our guys have embraced it early in the season, and now it's our job as coaches to make sure that we stay consistent with it throughout the rest of the season.
And what would you like to see, maybe that you haven't seen out of your team so far, maybe as the season progresses, some of the things that you're trying to emphasize or get a little bit better on as the year goes along?
Well, I think the obvious thing is we got to make a few more shots. As good as our defense has been, we haven't been as good offensively, and it's not a function of our offense per se. It's more of a function of just shots not going in. I mean, we're getting good looks. We're running our offense efficiently, but we're just not knocking down shots. And I think a part of that is maybe conditioning early in the season. We played 3 games in 4 days. And, if you don't have your legs on you, under you, it makes it a little harder to make shots. And then we went from playing 3 games in 4 days to now going on the road and having to play in an NBA G League facility, which is great and nice. But then you have the NBA 3-point line out there, and now guys are starting to shoot NBA threes. And it's like, hey, no, toe up to the college line. You don't have to take NBA threes. And the further you go out, the lower your percentage gets. So I think that a combination of those things have hurt us a little bit. But I think as we continue to practice in this new facility and get our conditioning, our legs underneath us, I think our shots will start falling, because it's guys that have made shots in the past. And so I think it's just a matter of time before that starts to happen. And I think once we get that going in combination with our defense, we'll end up being a much better team.
And as you look around the conference, WCC has been off to a really strong start. Of course, Gonzaga, but a lot of the other teams, Pepperdine, Loyola, Marymount, their squads have played well to this point in the season. What is your general takeaway or some of the headlines that you see out of the league, and how do you kind of see your roster fitting into that whole group?
Our conference is good. Our conference is good. It's as good as I can ever remember it. I was in the WCC 10, 12 years ago, left, came back, and it's as good as I can ever remember it. I mean, Gonzaga's recruiting with anybody in the country, and they're their own monster. But the rest of the league is really good too. And I like to describe it this way. I mean, you could take the 5th or 6th place team in the WCC and put them up against the 5th or 6th place team in the Pac-12 and put them on a neutral site, and it's 50-50. You don't know who's going to win. Our conference is good. And so, you know, from top to bottom, you've already seen, you know, some good wins within our conference, and, you know, San Francisco beating Virginia and Gonzaga doing what they're doing. BYU's off to a great start. Pepperdine has played some really tough games, took UCLA to triple overtime. So we're in for a dogfight. It's going to be a year in and year out now. It's going to be a tough conference, and the tougher team's going to win, because there's no easy games. There's no gimmies. Every night is going to be, I mean, it's going to be a fight. But I think that with our team, with our experience now and our renewed toughness, I think that gives us a chance to really compete with anybody in our conference.
And with, I mean, home court being such a big deal, especially in conference play and then the WCC, where you have a lot of these environments that are challenging to play. How does this work out now with you guys playing in the G League arena? Obviously, it's a unfamiliar environment. Do you have to approach it differently, or do you just, you know, roll the ball out and see what happens for 40 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're fortunate that we get to practice there, and we've just started to practice there. We've gotten, you know, 4 or 5 practices under our belt in the new facility, and we just got to make the best of it. You know, there's no excuses, and we just have to roll with it. And this year more than ever, you just have to kind of figure things out and just be mentally tough. And I think that's the only way to approach it. We don't really talk about it. We just go out there and we have to do our jobs, and that's the most important thing. And I think if we do that, we'll be fine.
And with this roster in particular, some of the individuals on this team who have stepped up, like, who are some of the faces on this team who you're looking at and you're leaning on as the season progresses?
Well, we have some good depth. We're very fortunate that way. So the thing I like most about our roster is, on any given night, you know, there's a number of guys that can have great games and lead us to victory. It probably starts with you know, one of our senior leaders, Josip Vrankic, who is a preseason first team all league, all conference, and he's had some tremendous games to start with. And you know, he's been a 4-year starter and been with the program. Our first recruit at Santa Clara, and really the guy that's been here from day one, and he's seen the development from where we started to where we're at now. But really, like I said, beyond there's a number of guys. It's not just Josip. I mean, we have a great backcourt with Christian Carlisle, who's a transfer from Florida Gulf Coast, who's been tremendous for us. Just a tough kid who just makes a bunch of winning plays, and Jalen Williams, who's really emerged as a sophomore, who's really grown up a lot and just has a tremendous future. You know, Keyshawn Justice, our starting 3 right now, who's a junior and has a ton of experience. And we have Willie Caruso back, who missed all of conference last year, who last year in December was just starting to come into his own, came off a 25-point game and 25 and 15 rebound game, and then got hurt and missed the rest of the season. So we have him back, and he's just starting to work his way back with his conditioning and stuff. And Jaden Bediako was our backup center, now starting for us, and he's been tremendous. He had a 15-point game. I think he's averaging 9 rebounds a game right now. So we have DJ Mitchell, who's been coming off the bench and just giving us a huge lift, playing the 4 and the 3 for us. We just have a pretty deep roster with a bunch of guys that can come in and contribute. And then we have some guys that are you know, that didn't play a whole lot last year or redshirted last year that are now you know, able to play, and Jordan Williams and Miguel Tomley, and then a freshman in Trent Hudgens. I mean, we really have you know, some good depth here, and on any given night, different guys can give us different lifts.
One of the things that I noticed about this Santa Clara roster, when I go from top to bottom, just a lot of height and a lot of size on this team. Is that, from your perspective, is it kind of by design, or is it just the players who rolled in? And a second part on that, how do you use that to your advantage? Obviously, things like rebounding and maybe playing the passing lanes can be improved by that. But just what is it like when most of your guys are going to be standing at least 6'7", 6'8"?
Yeah, no, that's a great observation, and it's definitely by design. We love, big guards, and then it's always better when you have length up front, and that's a given. But I think something that we did in the offseason is we really studied the Miami Heat and their defense and the way they play and the pack line and beating the gaps and kind of forcing teams to take tough twos. And if you can eliminate the other team getting layups and points in the paint, and you force teams to play on the perimeter and take jump shots, and you have length, now teams are taking a lot of contested jump shots. And that's something that is certainly by design, certainly a focus of ours. And it's going to continue to be a focus on the recruiting trail, is to get, big guards and length up front. And if you do that in combination with the defense that we're playing now and forcing guys to take those tough contested twos, makes it really hard on the offense. And, we always talk about, hey, we'll live with tough twos. If guys are going to take, pull up jumpers off the dribble over size and length, we'll live with that all day long. We don't feel like teams can make enough of those to beat us. And that's something that we talk about on a daily basis in practice. So it's certainly by design and an emphasis for us.
Jay, thanks so much, man, for coming on. I got a few more before we let you go.
Sure.
Yeah, so you've done some things. We'll talk a little bit about you specifically. You've done some things outside of just the game of basketball. The pandemic had all of us kind of shut down, and where we couldn't do some of the things we were normal and used to. Talk a little bit about one organization that you're a part of. We're talked a lot about this with rising coaches in college basketball, NBA basketball, in our world period, just about just working for more social equality and justice in general. So talk a little bit about the organization you're a part of, and then just talk a little bit about your career and how you ended up at Santa Clara, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So why don't I start? So I started off as a student manager at UCLA and worked for Steve Lavin for 2 years. And then Ben Howland came in my junior year, and, him and I struck a good friendship. And when he came in, I really saw the game from a different perspective. And that's when I realized, maybe after my senior year, that I wanted to get into coaching. And I was fortunate enough to be able to stay on the coaching staff as a volunteer, kind of assistant video coordinator. And that's really how I got my start. And we were really good at the time. So I was blessed to be a part of some unbelievable teams that were going to Final Fours. And we had guys like Russell Westbrook and Aaron Aflalo and Darren Collison. It was a really fun time. So I got exposed to the game really early. You can't beat going to Final Fours. And so that's where I got my start. And then Kerry Keating, who was an assistant on the staff, got the head coaching job at Santa Clara. So he got the head coaching job there, and I ended up going there and getting my first paid position in coaching. So I spent 2 years at Santa Clara as the video coordinator and director of ops. And then Ben Howland hired me back at UCLA as the video coordinator and then director of player development and scouting. So I came back to UCLA after 2 years at Santa Clara, spent 4 years at UCLA, and then had another great experience. Obviously, my alma mater. I'm from Los Angeles, so nothing beats coaching and working for your alma mater in your hometown. Then I ended up at Arizona State with Herb Sendek, and very fortunate. We had some mutual friends that helped me get on there, and then I worked for Coach Sendek for 2 seasons at Arizona State, and then I left to Mississippi State for 1 year with Ben Howland. He took the job there. And I was on his first staff there, spent 1 year there in Starkville, Mississippi, had a great experience, amazing people. And then Coach Sendek got the job at Santa Clara, and he said, "Hey, do you want to come back to California?" And I said, "Absolutely." I'm a California guy, born and raised in LA. So the opportunity to come back and be an assistant coach, most importantly, in California, was a tremendous opportunity I couldn't pass up. So I came back, and now I've been with Coach Sendek here going on my 5th season, and it's been a tremendous experience, and very grateful for Coach Sendek giving me the opportunity. He's an amazing teacher. I learn from him every day, and I'm excited about the direction that our program's going. But then going back to your question about the organization, are you referring to the Latino Association of Basketball Coaches, Brian?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So About 7-8 years ago, myself, along with a friend of mine, Leo Schwartzberg, we decided that we were going to start the Latino Association of Basketball Coaches. And the reason for it was we just felt like there was no network for us. We didn't know who we were in the business. There was no camaraderie, no connection. We didn't know each other, and we felt like there'd be power in numbers. And if we all got to know each other, all the Latino coaches, that we could help each other, and we could be more powerful in helping advance each other in the business. So it started off really small. We probably had 7 people the first meeting, if that. And some of them, in that meeting, I was very fortunate because there was a guy by the name of Terry Layton who showed up, and he had worked for Nike, and he was in charge of Latin America basketball. So he knew everybody in the Latin American world for basketball, and he became really a friend and a mentor for me, and helping shape this organization and helping me get connected with everyone. And Terry passed away a couple years from cancer, and but was an amazing person, amazing friend. And really, I have a lot of gratitude for him, because I really owe a lot of what this organization has become to him because of the relationships that he opened up for me. And then we ended up getting Frank Martin involved, and Sergio Rocco, who was so instrumental. He's kind of the OG of Latino coaches. He knows everybody. He's been a head coach in Division I, been a longtime assistant coach, and there's not one Latino coach that he's not connected to. So he really helped connect all the dots for me and the organization. And now, fast forward 7-8 years later, we've really gotten organized. We've had tremendous momentum, and we just started up our website. It should be launched here any week. We're going to create membership. We have all these awesome incentives for coaches and not just college coaches, college coaches from all walks of life, whether it's high school, junior college, professional, any Division I, II, or III, NAIA. We want coaches from all levels to be a part of this. And really the most important thing is to create a network for all these coaches to know that, hey, we're going to help each other. We're going to be able to rely on each other. If you need advice, you have this organization here to help you with whatever issues you're going through, or to help you advance in the business, no matter what level you want to coach at. And, just I'll tell you a quick story. When we had just kind of got this thing started with social media and stuff, there was a young coach who DM'd us and said, hey, I didn't even know this organization existed. I'm a coach. I'm struggling. I was literally about to quit coaching. But then when I found out about this organization and that there's others like me, it gave me renewed inspiration to continue my path to be a coach. And if we can help young men and women like that, and give them just a little hope, a little inspiration that, hey, if this is your passion, then go ahead and go for it, then we're doing our job. And that I'm really proud of the staff that I have helping this organization, and they've been working tirelessly to make this happen. So very proud of our organization.
Yeah, awesome stuff, man. Awesome stuff. Love it. And so important to do, period. Just for people, no matter what line of work you're in, just to be able to relate and have a group that you can kind of connect to help navigate, and have teammates to go through it with, I think is just important in any field. I know Eli's got a bunch of really smart media guys that he has his team with, and everybody needs that no matter what field you're in. So salute to you guys for what you're doing. We'll end you real quick with 2-part. Okay, it's got to be about Coach Sendek. So I work with Lamont Smith, a tremendous head coach who also was in the WCC. I think you guys may have worked together, possibly at Arizona.
Yeah, we did.
I thought so.
At Santa Clara, actually, at Santa Clara.
Ah, okay.
He had one quick year. He had one quick year here back with Kerry Keating as head coach. Right, we worked together. Right. Lamont's a good friend. Yeah,
really tremendous basketball coach, and was there with in the WCC. Had success at San Diego, and I worked with him at UTEP. And he talks about Coach Sendek and how legendary he is, and just how he looks at the game, how he challenges guys in the offseason, like you talked about with the Miami Heat, going to learn their defense, and just kind of always innovative. He has a great tree of guys that have gone on, Dedrick Taylor, Scott Pera, Lamont Smith, have gone on to be head coaches. I'm sure I mentioned a bunch of others that he's had. But talk a little bit about Coach, and then you got to tell us one funny story about Coach before you go.
Oh my gosh!
It's got to be about Coach. It's got to be about the team. It's got to be about Coach. Of course, it's got to be appropriate, but even something funny he's done to you to kind of challenge you or push you.
Oh my gosh! Dang, that's a tough one. Well, I mean, I have to think about this, but I'll start off, just talking about Coach Sendek in general. and he is an unbelievable teacher of the game. And like you said, like nothing, like no stone goes unturned. And he's just an incredible teacher. He's a tireless worker. Like he challenges us because it's like, well, shoot, we can't let that head coach outwork us. I mean, he usually it's the assistants that got to grind it out, and he's just so consistent. He's a guy who he gets to the office every day at the same time, and he leaves every day at the same time. And in between those hours that he's in the office, there's zero wasted time. There's no hanging out, talk, like just not being there's no unproductive moments throughout the day. So from the time he gets in, he has a plan and agenda. He's watching film, he's working on practice, he's meeting with players, he's doing something, he's meeting with administration. Everything is calculated out from the moment he walks into the office to the moment he leaves. So he doesn't stay till 11 o'clock at night, but he's very consistent between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., 6 p.m. There's just in that time span, he's doing something. And that's something that I think I've learned most importantly from him, is to like make every moment count throughout the day and be productive and don't waste time. And when you do that, then it's amazing to see the results on a daily basis. So that's one thing that really stands out to me most about Coach Sendek. Above and beyond just being an incredible teacher. He has, I think, like 15 or 16 assistant coaches that have gone on to become head coaches. Sean Miller, Stan Johnson, Barrett Perry, John Gross. I mean, the list goes on. It's incredible. And it's a testament to the teacher of the game that he is, because not only is he an incredible teacher to the players, but he's an incredible teacher to the assistant coaches that are working for him. And like I said, we learn from him every day. And he has an incredible memory. He'll be like, well, hey, back when I worked 5-star camp 25 years ago, we ran this drill and we did it this way. And it's like, oh my gosh, how do you remember that? Like, that's incredible. But let me see a story. The story that I like, and I'm not even gonna be able to tell it like he tells it. Not even close. He's a way better storyteller than I am. But I always like hearing the Wally Szczerbiak story. And that's something that I can't. Yeah, it's just always great to hear. It's not. I don't know. If it's not really funny, but it's just a cool story.
Tell it anyway.
So Coach Sendek was the head coach at Miami of Ohio. Billy Donovan was the head coach at Marshall at the time. And they. I don't know if you know this, but Coach Sendek was an assistant coach at Providence College for Rick Pitino. Jeff Van Gundy was the GA, and Billy Donovan was the point guard. So that's like their coaching tree fraternity. Like they all started together. So fast forward years later, Coach Sendek's a head coach, Billy Donovan's a head coach, and they're at this tournament back east somewhere in New York. And Billy Donovan's dad is just like this old school, longtime basketball guy, goes to all the games, knows everybody. And he goes up to both Coach Donovan and Coach Sendek and says, hey, you got to watch this kid. This kid's really good. You got to watch him. You got to watch him. And it's Wally Szczerbiak. So he watch this kid. So they're at the game watching him, and he's playing on this New York AAU team. I forget what I forget the name of the AAU team, but it was like the most prominent AAU team in all of the East Coast at the time. Equivalent of like the best EYBL team. And Wally Szczerbiak's like the sixth man on this team, and the other 5 guys are all going to the Big East and the ACC, and they're just super talented. And they're watching this kid, and he doesn't wow anybody, but every time he goes in, it's like, he's 4 for 5 from 3, 4 for 4 from the foul line. Then the next game, he's 5 for 7 from the field, knocks down 2 threes, and he's again 6 for 6 from the foul line. Then the next game, he's 4 for 6 from the field, and he's just super consistent. And Coach Sendek's sitting there, and he's like, if this kid keeps playing this way, there's no way we're gonna get him. There's no way. Like, and he's just like, oh my gosh, like what? I hope this kid stops playing so well. But he just doesn't do enough. And everybody's like, well, he's not quick enough to be a 3, but he's too small to be a 4. So all these Big East schools and ACC schools are overlooking him. And Coach Sendek just stays consistent. He's just going every game, watching him, and again, he's being consistent. And then sure enough, the summer ends, and it comes down to Miami of Ohio and an Ivy League school. And Wally Szczerbiak visits Miami of Ohio and commits on the spot. And the rest is history. He ends up being a lottery pick, NBA All-Star. And, it's all because of Billy Donovan's father. And, you know, Billy Donovan should listen to his dad, because I think Marshall stopped recruiting him or something. But sure enough, you know, that's how he got Wally Zerbiak. So I just think that's a cool story, because it just shows Coach Sendek's consistency and perseverance, and not being discouraged, and, you know, and just staying consistent with you know, with the recruiting process, and, you know, and then the rest is history, obviously.
And now he holds you guys to that same standard, right?
No question. You got to bring it every day with him, because he's not missing anything. And I'll leave one last thing about Coach Sendek, and I think here's the most important part about him as a head coach, is he doesn't pigeonhole you in any way. You have to be well-rounded. Like, you can't be just the recruiter. You can't be just the X's and O's guy. You have to be able to do everything. You better be able to recruit at a high level. You better be able to coach on the floor at a high level. You better be able to watch film and evaluate and prepare at a high level. You have to do everything at a high level. And he's very demanding that way. And I think that's a big reason why his assistants go on to be so successful, is because while you work for him, you have to be prepared in every aspect of coaching. And it really helps you. It helps you prepare. And it's tough, and it's hard, and it's a grind. But at the end of the day, it really helps you. And I think that's why, again, so many guys have gone on to be so successful working for him.
Yeah, great stuff, Jay. Thanks so much for joining us, man. Good luck the rest of the way, and stay safe for sure. And tell the rest of the staff, Coach Garson, another really good coach, and I don't know the other gentlemen on your staff, but tell everybody we said hello, and we're pulling for you here at Heat Check Basketball.
Hey, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you guys having me. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Eli, another good one down, man. What'd you think?
Yeah, that was good. It was really fun getting into kind of the you know, the networking side and the kind of the personal side of coaching, and you know, it's something that we've discussed before, but kind of cool to hear the different stories and how the different staffs operate. Obviously, different things at Xavier that you might not see at Santa Clara and so on. So just really cool. Their team has gone through a lot just in the last week or so, but sounds like they're taking it in stride and just really making the most of their situation. Playing, expecting to play in an empty college campus, and now they're playing at an empty G League arena. So 4-0, it's working so far. But it's cool to hear his perspective, and a team that we'll definitely have our eyes on, and a conference that we'll have our eyes on as well.
Yeah, high level of basketball, like you said, in that conference, and you know, it's hard to win one game in college basketball. I think, you know, those that don't know and haven't been on that side of the lines, I know from a fan perspective, it can seem like, oh, they should be. It's hard to win one game, and so much goes into one game: the preparation, the scouting, the practice, the execution, the health of your team, the timing of, are you coming off a winning streak or a losing streak, or who do you play right after that? Who did you play right before? There's so many things. Academics. What are guys doing mentally off the floor? Are they distracted because of a test, or it's finals week, or it's midterms, or did somebody have something tragic happen off the floor in their family that they're overcoming, or is somebody sick? Or there's just so many things that go into winning one single game. Is somebody going home to their hometown and they have 50 people in the stands, and is it going to be a distraction, and all kinds of things. So congratulations to both teams getting off to a hot start. Let's just jump straight into, as we kind of close the show, the last 10 or 15 minutes. What's some of the players that you thought have got off to a great start? I'll name just a few. I think we've talked about these. One name that isn't talked about much, and again, I'm biased towards Texas guys, so forgive me in advance. I'm going to represent for my guys, but Kendrick Davis from SMU has played at an extremely high level. I think he's as good of a point guard as there is in that league, as good of a player and competitor as there is in that conference or in the country. He's played at an extremely high level. I think they are the team to kind of rival Houston in that conference for the top of the league. Cade Cunningham is another Texas guy that's played at an elite level, a projected number one pick in the NBA draft. He is a freshman, but just wise beyond his years, kind of has that Grant Hill smoothness about his game, a big guard who's versatile, who can rebound, who can make plays for other teammates. Another guy who's really played at a high level. This one is a little bit off the grid. I am a Conference USA former assistant coach too, but I just want to give credit to Charles Bassey for coming back, being the impact player that everybody thought he could be and would be as he was a freshman, projected kind of one-and-done guy when he came in and had a pretty challenging injury. And for him to come back from his injury and play at a high level and lead Western Kentucky to some early success, and looks explosive. He looks good. He's put on some pounds. He looks like every bit of an NBA big man. So I want to shout out to him too. And then as we talk about big man, maybe playing as great as any player to start the year in a long time, the big fella at Iowa, we'd be remiss not to mention Garza and all the things he's doing. I think he's led his play scoring-wise, has outscored the other teams at the half 2 games. So those are 4 of the guys that I wanted to recognize for playing at a high level, and I'll kind of let you have the floor to do the same.
Yeah, really good list. Garza's been phenomenal, and I'm curious to see what he does tonight against North Carolina. That's a good test for them, but putting up, I think it was 31-9 at the half, regardless of the opponent it doesn't even matter. It's just really impressive, and the freshmen have been good. Cade, as you mentioned, has been really impressive. Jeremiah Robinson-Earl from Villanova is another name that's come to mind, and Villanova dropping that early game of the season, but they're still looking really strong, and Robinson-Earl has been a huge factor there. And then on the mid-major side, I think the guy who I have my eyes on the most is Chandler Vaudrin from Winthrop. He seems to have such a great feel for the game and plays really under control, lefty, really smooth. Just maintains kind of a steady pace that helps that Winthrop offense move. So a lot of good guys who have emerged. Even with Xavier, with Zach Fremantle, who's I think averaging somewhere around 17, 18 a game and doing a really good job for an undefeated Xavier team. So a lot of notable names. Jason Preston from Ohio, I think he got a lot of respect for what he did against Illinois. Just a great performance in that one. So a lot of great players have shown up. Alex Barcelo as well, BYU, another guy who's put up some huge numbers to start the season. So it's fun to see some of these players emerge, and especially the stars have been really good. The guys who we talked about all offseason, as you mentioned, Cade, Garza, Robinson-Earl, Ayo Dosunmu from Illinois. Those guys have played really well, but you also see some of these new faces emerge who might not have been on our radar. So really fun mix, and I know we'll see a lot of those guys in action this week in what should be a really good week of college basketball.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. There's a couple other guys I'm always going to show love to, our Texas guys. Drew Timme, who we talked about off the air at Gonzaga in his sophomore season, just looks every bit of as good a big man as there is in the country. Obviously, there's a top-rated team in the country, so he looks elite. He looks special. Great to see him doing the things he's doing in the Gonzaga uniform. I may have mentioned Trayvon Mark earlier in the show as a freshman. I'm just super impressed with him. I mean, I'm a Texas guy, and he's a Houston kid from Dickinson High School. But just the way that the rate that he's gotten to the free throw line is as good as anybody. It's something I need to look up for next time. But he's gotten there at an extremely high rate as a freshman. So I want to definitely recognize him as well. And there's one more freshman. I know you know who I'm talking about, from Kansas, who's played well. Also from Dallas, was originally a commit to Michigan. And then John Beeline chose to go to Cleveland Cavs, and he opened up his recruitment, and that's Jalen Wilson. Has started to play really well. We talk a lot about experience, guys kind of coming in, playing early in the season, playing well, and he's put together a few double-double type performances for Kansas and looked really good in that Kansas uniform early on. So wanted to recognize him as well. Let's talk about, before we kind of close the show, we'll end with 2 segments. One, we talk about some coaches in year 1 and coaches in year 2. Oftentimes we kind of forget about the guys as they're rebuilding in year 2 that can make that jump. So let's talk about some of those year 1 and year 2 coaches, and then also let's end with just some preview games that you think are worth kind of watching upcoming, and we'll both kind of go back and forth on that. But we'll start with the coaches.
Yeah, I think the one that I'll mention here right off the bat, Mike Payo from UC Riverside. It's just really cool, kind of going back to what Jason said about diversity in college basketball, and with Mike being the first Asian American head coach to coach in D1 basketball. And he's got Riverside off to a really good start. just a tremendous performance against Washington, defeated them down in Vegas. And that will be a program to watch. Riverside's had their struggles in recent years, but maybe this is the time where they turn it around. Yeah, he's done a really good job there. And I expect them to be a factor in the Big West, or at least continue on this trend that they've been setting. So that's one to watch. Definitely a program that I think could see some positive steps in the right direction in these coming years.
Yeah, I'll give two, one for year 2 coach, and then one for year 1 coach, and then I'll pass it back to Eli for a year 2 coach. Give him a little time, even though he has it, I'm sure, in his Rolodex of information. But I'll go with a year 1 coach, like you just said. I'll go with Terrence Johnson from Texas State. Really excited about what he's doing. He's another guy that's in a really challenging situation, similar to Wichita State. Their head coach is no longer there. He was kind of thrust into the seat kind of unexpectedly after the school year started. And, man, what a first-class guy. He's got off to his first. I think he started 3-0, if I'm not mistaken. They're now 4-1 or 3-1, somewhere right around there. And just, again, handling adversity. We talk about adjusting a lot with COVID and everything going on with this season. I think he's done a tremendous job there at Texas State. I think they'll have a competitive team for the Sun Belt. And, you always root for those guys that have a chance to show what they can do to continue to have a chance to lead that program. So I wanted to give a special shout out to him, because I think that's a difficult situation to go from assistant coach to head coach all of a sudden. And now your players have to look at you different, and you have to command a locker room and lead a program and be the CEO. So I want to give a special shout out to him. And then Greg Gary, I think, is in year 2 has been, they're undefeated. I think they're 5-0. Mercer is, and we had Bobby Coomer, the assistant coach, on College Hoops Coast to Coast yesterday, and just want to give a shout out to them. They're undefeated to start the year. They've really started out strong, and to be able to make that kind of a jump in year 2, I think they're averaging about 80 points a game, right at 79, and just playing some really good basketball. So, those jumps are hard to do. It's just hard to turn around a program. It's hard to kind of get things going the way you want to get them going. So I want to make sure we recognize those 2 guys. I'll give you your year 2 coach, and then we'll also go into the games for next week, or this next upcoming weeks.
Yeah, I would go with Eric Musselman from Arkansas. It's a name who I've been really familiar over the years, watching what he has done at Nevada and getting his shot in the SEC. And I think Arkansas is going to sneak up into that SEC ladder and possibly get into that first tier of the conference with what they've done. It's going to be a team that is really athletic, multi-positional, plays really good offense. And Musselman and his staff, he's got a lot of really good guys who I've gotten to know over the years, who are just maintaining focus on their goals and doing more in terms of, marketing the program and making sure that everyone's aware of what they're doing. So I think the Razorbacks are going to be really interesting to watch as the season goes along. And it shouldn't be too long before they sneak up and are one of those teams that are competing with the likes of, Tennessee or Kentucky or Alabama or some of those teams.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Muss is just, he kind of has a formula. He sticks to it. He did it at Nevada, coached against them. Didn't necessarily like coaching against them at times, because he had the Martin twins, and those guys are obviously still doing their thing in the NBA. But Coach Muss is always going to kind of find a way to not only have some fun with his social media, but also make sure that his team is really competitive. So we'll kind of switch, talk about today's games, talk about some upcoming games. I think the Iowa-North Carolina game is obviously one of the biggest games on the slate for Garza, who we've talked about being probably the preseason National Player of the Year. To go against this athletic, deep front line of North Carolina will be great to see. Kind of a different look for him in that Big Ten ACC Challenge. Creighton and Kansas, the top team in the Big East projected-wise, in Creighton playing against Kansas. I actually think Creighton will find a way to win that game. Just kind of what we talked about, the experience. I think it'll be a great game, but I'm going to go with Creighton on that one and go with the underdog. I'm going to go with UNC to upset number 3 Iowa today. And then you kind of talked about this earlier in the show, Austin Peay, Murray State. So talk a little bit about Wednesday, some even big games maybe on Wednesday. Talk a little bit about that if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think just one more I want to mention before we transition to Wednesday.
Yeah.
Colorado and Tennessee is going to be a fun one. And Tennessee is a team that a lot of people had picked to win the SEC. They have unfortunately not had a chance to hit the floor yet. So that's one of those programs in the top 15, top 20, who everyone's been looking forward to. So they scheduled that one at the last second. Colorado's already played some games, so that should be fun to see how those two teams wind up playing later tonight. And then Wednesday, we've got more Big Ten, ACC, Michigan State, Virginia. That should be a really competitive one, especially on the defensive side. Virginia's been a little shaky performances against Toledo and San Francisco, but they play big in big games, and Michigan State come into town. That's a big one. And then some other quality mid-major ones: Boise State, BYU. The Broncos struggled against Houston to open the season, but I think that they're starting to smooth the waters a little bit. Now they got their feet under them. That's going to be a challenge to play BYU. And then turning it back to you, I know I wanted to include this one: Abilene Christian, Texas Tech. ACU's off to a really good start. It's been against relatively weaker competition, but they've passed all their tests so far, and it really doesn't get any bigger than heading to Lubbock and playing Texas Tech. So I've got my eyes on that one. I'm just curious to see what Abilene Christian does. That's a really good test for that program, who's been good these past 2 seasons.
Yeah, absolutely is. We gotta jump in right here from a comment. Rutgers versus Syracuse will be interesting. Ron Harper Jr. is serious, and Rutgers is better than some think. Coach Robinson, I think without a doubt, Rutgers is legit. They've made the jump to put themselves into probably what is the best conference basketball-wise, the Big Ten, the deepest right now, and Rutgers has put themselves in a position where they're one of the better teams in that conference. So I would pick Rutgers in that game. Just a little bit biasly too. Another Texas guard to have on their team that used to play at Texas that I recruited when I was at UTEP, Jacob Young, whose brother played the NBA, Joseph Young, who can really score the ball. And I look forward to seeing what Rutgers does in that game. Thanks so much for your comment, Darrell. Lots of jam-packed games coming up. We can continue to go even down the list, but the Big Ten ACC Challenge will be great. More and more rescheduled games will happen, so we'll keep you posted. It'll be fluid. Some teams are starting conference play, so next week we'll be on similar time with the Mountain West. We'll go back, dive into the Mountain West with the Mountain West Insider, and have some of the coaches from that league come on and kind of talk about what's going on there, and we'll dive into all topics Mountain West. And then the week after that, we'll come back and be on Heat Check again and just talk more hot topics, who's playing well at the time, all those kind of good things. But by that time, conference play should start for a lot of teams, and we'll have even better feel of who really is hot and who really is playing well and who really is kind of getting going. Hopefully some of these 40-something teams that haven't gotten to play yet will get a chance to get out there and compete themselves, and hopefully we can continue to have more safe, positive testing and have more great stories to tell. So before we leave, I'll let Eli kind of talk about Heat Check and kind of let you guys know where to find everything for Heat Check. And then All Access, of course. We've changed our Instagram. So now we are All Access Network on Instagram, on YouTube, and on Facebook. So make it very easy. All Access Network includes All Access Coaches Corner and Sports Media. So you can find us also on Twitter at All Access CC underscore CC for Coaches Corner and underscore SM for Sports Media. So that gives you the rundown on us, and then we will let Eli talk about Heat Check.
Yeah, I mean, another really fun show. This is the second one down. Talking to some of the different coaches around the country, touching on some of the hot topics in college basketball. We're doing this every other week, as Brian mentioned. So we'll transition back to Mountain West Insider next week. But I'm just really excited to have Brian on the staff here at Heat Check and doing a lot of different things, covering the sport, a lot of different stories to tell, regardless of conference or league and things like that. So you can follow us at Heat Check CBB on all social media platforms, and our website so you can find our written content is heatcheckcbb.com.
Yeah, and so we will be transitioning these as well to podcasts. We have just started our All Access Coaches Corner podcast. We are now on episode 6. that comes out tomorrow, which is Adam Nelson from Hoop Dirt. Those that follow basketball and those that want to know kind of what's going on in basketball, you got to know what www.hoopdirt.com is. So Adam will be our next guest that will be on Coach's Corner, and then we will very soon be transitioning these also not only to YouTube you can find us, but also on your favorite podcast platform. So again, thanks so much. Be safe. I think we've done a pretty good job covering the heat. So stay cool out there in the winter, and we'll heat you up